There was a line which said Iranian arrangements in the MOU, which Iranians interpreted as if they were in control of the Strait of Hormuz. US, like India, has to give details of each person who's lost his life or is injured to its own public. Once you do that, there is no other option but to retaliate. Now that the World Cup is over, you will see possibly bigger strikes. Both sides are looking towards the domestic audience. The oil prices will continue to remain up. These countries think that Iran can still open the Houthi option. Iranians are also playing a smart game. They're not targeting Israel.
Hello and a very warm welcome to all. You're watching Hindustan Times and my name is Aisha Varma. On this segment of Point Blank, against the backdrop of a widening regional crisis, recent high-level diplomatic engagements in the Gulf have assumed greater geopolitical significance. And especially when we talk about the Middle East, we're going to be joined by HT's executive editor, Mr. Shishir Gupta, to decode what's taking place as far as the Iran-America war is concerned. Sir, namaskar. So recently a big development has taken place where America is concerned. 3 US troops have been killed in Jordan in an airbase attack. 1 has been killed in Iraq. A number have been injured in Iran attacks, taking the total number of US servicemen killed to 18 since the war began. Where is this going and why the sudden spurt?
See, there have been series of disagreement between Iran and US after the MOU was signed. First was as to who handles the Strait of Hormuz. Now, there was a line which said Iranian arrangements in the MOU, which Iranians interpreted as if they were in control of the Strait of Hormuz, which was not the case. It was all about freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, then what happens is that ships started taking the southern corridor, which goes closer to Oman than the northern corridor, which goes closer to the Iranian side. Now, once the ships were going to the northern side, they were obviously paying toll discreetly to the Iranians. Now, all those ships who started to use the southern corridor, they were targeted by the Iranians, and in which a number of people, which is particularly Indians, lost their lives because they were on board their ships. Once that happened, the Americans decided to retaliate and reinforce the blockade. And that is where the ceasefire was called off around July 8th by President Donald Trump. Now, once that happened, the Iranians decided to do tit-for-tat. So they started attacking all those American bases in the Gulf countries, particularly in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and sometimes in UAE and sometimes even in Saudi Arabia. King Faisal Air Base was attacked. And now the latest escalation is on Jordan. Now, for the past 9 days, Americans are targeting Iran all along the coastline, from Chabahar all the way up to Bandar Abbas and beyond. They are going inside, and there are reports that they were also targeting the new nuclear plants that the Iranians were making. They have been targeting critical infrastructure, that is bridges, so that the Iranians cannot move their missiles from one place to the other. But they have not targeted any power plants, they have not targeted any other critical infrastructure, that is the oil or any refineries. The Iranians obviously cannot be shown to be lying down. So the leadership has decided to target, for instance, they targeted a desalination plant in Kuwait. They targeted some oil depots. They've targeted a number of strikes. And the latest one, which really is a cause of concern, is the strike on the Muwafaq Salti air base in Jordan. Now, in that strike, 2 US servicemen were killed, and yesterday remains of the 3rd serviceman have been found. Simultaneously, there was a killing of a US serviceman in Iraq when they were trying to do controlled detonation of an Iranian drone. So 4 people have been killed, others have been injured, and a total of 18 have been killed since the war started. Now, the fact remains is many people would have lost their lives in Iran. But Iran, being an authoritarian state, they don't need to tell their public as to how many people have lost their life. But US, like India, has to give details of each person who's lost his life or is injured to its own public. And that is where the problem lies. Once you do that, there is no other option but to retaliate. And this is what President Donald Trump is doing. But the problem here is that all this is taking a dangerous escalation. Now, my understanding is that President Donald Trump was waiting for the Football World Cup to get over before it started to take further escalation.
Okay.
Now that the World Cup is over, you will see possibly bigger strikes, and you will see the whole thing taking some sort of a calculated vertical escalation. The Iranians also are doing actually calibrated strikes, and they are targeting only those countries which find it difficult to retaliate on their own. So, sum and substance, the entire thing is that it's a matter of serious concern. The war is taking an escalatory curve right now. It's going up the escalatory ladder, and it is for Iran to decide as to what it wants to do as far as the ceasefire goes or as far as the negotiations go. If Iran continues to retaliate using ballistic missiles, intermediate ballistic missiles like it used in Jordan, then this war will definitely take a step up.
Sir, do you think that both sides still have incentives to avoid full-scale escalation? Can this conflict essentially move back towards negotiations?
See, negotiation is always an option in this, but the problem over here is that, you know, both sides are looking towards the domestic audience. President Donald Trump is headed toward midterm poll in November. Iranians, you know, have to tell their radicalized people and the mullahs that they are not backing down on, they're not backing down due to American pressure. So they're all stuck within their own boxes, and that is where the problem lies. Now, one way out is that possibly because of, you know, the way the bombing is going on and the way the American campaign is going on, something gives way, and the Iranian regime is not being able to handle the entire thing. That is one option. There is negotiation, but Iran will not back down. It will continue to drag because it has no intentions of doing anything. So in that way, America is basically riding a tiger. And the problem over here is that there is only one way out. The Iranians need to back down, or there has to be some sort of, you know, some change in Iran so that there is peace. Otherwise, Iranians will continue to retaliate to the American bombing, and things will go up the escalatory ladder, and there'll be skirmishes all around. But there is a very strong possibility of a dangerous escalation in case some accident happens.
So the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, was in Qatar, Bahrain, Oman and Kuwait for a week earlier this month. What is the message that these countries are sending?
See, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar was told by the Prime Minister to travel to these countries for a week. So he was there in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, and these countries have been affected by the war that is going on. Now, one thing became very clear, that this is not ending right now, and the war will continue. At least, it will basically vary from low intensity to high intensity conflict kind of thing. But the larger message why External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar had gone over there, because there is a significant diaspora in these countries, and the leadership of these countries is taking care of the diaspora. So basically, to ensure that, to assure them that we are standing with them. The other thing is that it comes out very clearly that the oil prices will continue to remain up because of the skirmishes which are taking place now and then. Now, so that is the second. So basically, the oil prices will be around $80 to $85 per barrel. The third thing, which is a matter of very serious concern, is that these countries think that Iran can still open the Houthi option. See, they have not used the Houthi militia for targeting ships in the Red Sea. If that happens, so you have Iranians taking, targeting ships in Strait of Hormuz, Houthis, their allies targeting ships in Bab el-Mandab, which they control, then things will become very tricky. Then the oil prices could further shoot up. Then there could be a problem that these countries will not be able to export oil. So there is a very serious concern among the Gulf countries saying as to where this all goes. Second thing, these countries are being targeted, including Qatar, which was actually a mediator, including Oman, which was initially a mediator, are being targeted simply because they are seen to be with the US, right? Or under the US security umbrella. So there is a concern in the Gulf countries, but the Gulf countries are also heavily divided. That is where the problem lies. So everybody is trying to, some sort of, maybe, pay some protection money to the Iranians so that they don't get targeted. Some are trying to reach out to US. Some are trying to reach out to China. And somehow, basically it's like, survival of the fittest kind of thing. And to ensure that the Iranians don't attack. But Iranians don't have any qualm as far as attacking these countries go. While these countries believe in the larger ummah, Iran is doing what it wants to do and has been doing it for the past 47 years.
So while Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, and even Qatar have been made the targets of the Iran war against the US, is it surprising that the IRGC has left out the UAE and Saudi Arabia?
See, it's not that they have not been attacked. They have been attacked, but the attack right now is much more lower than these countries which have been really, specifically targeted. Now, there are two views in this. One view is that UAE has done some sort of an arrangement with Iran to ensure that it is not targeted. Basically, it basically means that UAE has paid protection money to Iran. But this is one view, but this is a view only. The other thing is that the Iranians know that if they attack UAE now, UAE right now has the backing not only of US but also of Israel. So there would be a significant counter retaliation. That is why they don't want to escalate the battle to that level. Possibly this is possibly the real thing. Now, as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, it's a different game altogether. In Saudi Arabia, it is the Pakistani, which was once upon a time a mediator in this entire thing, under Field Marshal Asim Munir. The Pakistanis are telling the Iranians that, listen, please don't attack Saudi Arabia because we are in a defense tie-up with Saudi Arabia and we will have to be forced to do something against you. So that is the reason why it's not attacking Saudi Arabia, right? But Saudi Arabia has been attacked, but to a very limited extent. Now, these countries are the two countries which are actually also the most powerful countries in the Gulf region. So what Iran is trying to do is that it is basically, it's a calibrated escalation that it is doing right now. But the problem in calibrated escalation is that if in case an accident happens, then all hell breaks loose. And that is something which nobody is prepared for. And there will be very serious global energy as well as economic ramifications.
So while the US is on an offensive for the 9th day, why exactly is Israel keeping quiet?
See, Israel is keeping quiet because Israel is looking purely right now at Hezbollah. And Israel has not been targeted by the Iranians, using the ballistic missiles. So if so what is happening is that Iranians are also playing a smart game. They're not targeting Israel because if they target Israel, Israel will go after Hezbollah. And Israel will again go back to Iran to degrade its military capabilities. It does not want Israel to act up. Israel on its part is actually waiting for something to happen so that it further degrades Iran militarily and further degrades Hezbollah beyond the Litani River to ensure that it has a security buffer around its own country.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us and decoding what's taking place in the Middle East. With that, it's a wrap, but do stay tuned for next week's segment of Point Blank.